What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the only sports podcast. That's right. It's the only sports podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino over there.
What's up?
How we doing today, Casino? Got a
going pretty good.
Baby hat?
Yeah, it's a baby hat. Maybe we get sponsored. Binky Bro. They're fantastic. They make some really cool kid stuff. It's surf, snow, and skate style stuff for kids. That's really cool. So our kids have both some really cool snow gear, like for the mountains, which is awesome. Just like regular snow gear, nothing like crazy. Hats, beanies, socks, pretty cool. Good brand. Binky Bros, sponsor us. But no, I'm doing pretty good. You know what? That would be a great sponsor for us, though. I mean, we are one with family, so we are one. God, man, your pores. I'm sorry, I can't get over it. I looked at the screen finally. You look great.
Thank you so much. I shaved since the last time I shaved yesterday, and already I have this scruff back. But
well, I look like a hobo, so. And here
so
comes
not
my
much
daughter
is new.
to save the day.
Yeah. But also, speaking of dads, Casino, which you and I both are.
Today's my anniversary too. My 2-year anniversary. This is great.
Dang. Well, congrats. But I found out a new feature.
No,
so if you're watching the video and not just listening to the audio, on YouTube, I switched where I was recording. I'm now recording in my son's room, which is why there's Spider-Man and somebody from Naruto right there. I don't know who that is. But
I'm glad that you said it correctly, Naruto. Everybody is like, Naruto.
Well, I'm not my dad. I'm his dad. But,
that's funny.
Because we switched to Casino, now we have the little thing down in the thing that tells us down in the corner that tells us what
in front of me.
Is. And so I found out we can put our names and then a sub headline. So for our sub headline, I put my name is Will, and it says Daddy under there. And for Casino, it says Other Daddy right down there. So
nice.
Other Daddy and Daddy, just in case you forget, right, that we have children. With Casino, you can't because his kid is right in the bottom hand corner. But Casino, we are the only sports podcast.
My other kid is outside staring at bugs on the concrete on the ground. She's enjoying it. Like the last 30 minutes, she's just been belly down on the concrete on the back patio, just staring at bugs. Like we have an overhang, so it's all shaded. But yeah, she's just laying there staring at little bugs. It's great. And then she wants to know what happens when she touches them and why they're not there anymore. I don't have the heart. I don't have the heart to tell her.
But Casino, our last podcast, we had some hot draft talk because that was the most topical. Now the most topical is let's get that Eclipse hot talk going. How did your Eclipse go yesterday, Casino?
The wife told me to stay inside and not to let our kids outside, so they didn't look up and all that, and the dogs. And I was like, okay, are we good? I made a good joke because she's a teacher, and I was like, all right, well, when you start seeing people float up into the sky, just let me know, call me, something like that. And then she was like, but we're inside. I was like, okay, when kids are on the ceiling like balloons, call me.
When it is a poltergeist situation. Nightmare on Elm Street. Remember where they walk into the room and she's being like torn up the side of the building? And
I was going more off of like Rapture, going off of the scripture because everybody was saying that.
Like, this is the end. Yeah. Maybe the best Rapture movie ever made.
Dude,
I fucking love that movie.
Dude, that movie is so hysterical. I've watched it twice, and everything made me laugh really, really good until the part that made me just like bawl out crying laughing was when Channing Tatum was a sex slave. That was great. that was funny.
That's a good movie. That is a good movie. But my Eclipse hot talk, Casino, was much like you and I talked about this before we started, or no, yesterday we talked about this, and how it's like when it gets that like biblical talking, right? Where it's just like, end of the world, crazy shit. Like, and then everybody starts throwing out their theories. I know it's bullshit. That does not mean that I don't start freaking out about it.
Yeah, because we have severe anxiety,
Yes.
both of us.
And
If you guys didn't know and couldn't catch on, we both have severe anxiety.
yeah.
Like where I take some medication, not daily, but I will take some stuff when I'm having like a severe. They're not panic attacks. I've never had a panic attack, I think, but I have heavy stress like freakouts. Because every time I hear somebody say panic attack, like they're hospitalized. So I've never been to that. I've never been to that point.
Well, this brings up my next banner, which is this is an intervention and you've been committed.
Ah!
But no, I'm not as bad as you. I'm not on medication. I probably should be, but what's the fun in that? But
The funny thing is, my medication is just it's called
it's just good
hydroxyzine.
vibes.
Well, no, so it's called hydroxyzine, and it's actually just like extra strength Benadryl, and they use it for anxiety, even though it's meant for it's truly meant for like allergies. But they're like, you could use it for anxiety.
So, but you're also on that horse pace stuff, right? But that's
Oh.
just because it tastes good.
Yeah. No, yeah. It also gives me really big erections. So
Yeah,
sure.
horse sized. But casino. But
Let's talk about sports.
well, the end of my Eclipse hot talk was I had both my kids yesterday. My wife's out of town. I was freaking out about it, especially because she wasn't here. So it was like I had my kids stay home from school yesterday, my 11-year-old, just because his school's on the other side of town because me and his mom are no longer together. So he goes to school on the other side of town. I didn't want some shit to go down. I didn't want shit to go down. Not like, I'm not talking like apocalypse, people floating in the sky. I'm talking like all of a sudden our electricity doesn't work and cars don't start. And then my kid's stranded on the other side.
So Y2K.
Yeah, like kind of like, yeah, like basic bitch apocalypse, which is what I would call it. But I didn't want something to happen and then him be on the other side of town. Of course, because we're still here, nothing happened, and then we just went and rode go-karts. So good.
So
day.
what you're saying is I have to take my wife out for dinner tonight for our anniversary? Shit.
And go-karts. And go-karts. That's a fun thing.
She'd be too scared to do go-karts, truly.
Really?
I think that would be fun. I've done it. My little brother worked for a go-kart place for years. He managed it for years, and that was fun, but I couldn't see her being into that.
Who I will never want sponsoring this podcast is the Las Vegas Mini Grand Prix because they are the biggest ripoff in town.
Oh,
Two
yeah.
kids for that pile of shit was like $75. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh, yeah.
If you've never been
and
to
you know what's
Vegas,
crazy though is I remember growing up going there constantly, and it would have to have been cheap because our parents taking us that often.
yeah.
I mean, it had to have been. It had to have been
The last time I was there as a kid was when I was like 14. There is no difference in how it looks now compared to when I was 14. And not in a like, oh, Disneyland, nostalgia, like that kind of thing. In like they don't do anything but just turn
that's
the lights
the same
on.
black mold that I saw when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's hot garbage. If you ever come to Vegas, never go there. There's much better places. But casino, almost 9 minutes in, let's finally talk about what everybody came here to talk about. And that is
Caitlin Clark.
That's wrestling, baby. Because not only was this...
I didn't watch a single match, man.
I know, that's why I'm just going to give my quick
Well,
rundown.
I told you, I'm all about AEW now, man. I've given up on the WWE.
I mean, you gave up at the wrong time because they've never been better. This was hands down a top 3 WrestleMania I've ever watched. You and I used to have a yearly tradition where we watch WrestleManias together, but then we had children. We, we like moved further apart from each other, and it's just, yeah.
Well, I remember talking on this podcast a long while ago that last time WrestleMania was around. And we talked about when we would watch it, and your oldest was like 4 or 5, and we were just like tackling him into the couch and playing, and he was like, "Yeah, WrestleMania, yeah."
Yeah. You know what's crazy though is the last WrestleMania you and I watched together, I think was 32. I think it was 32. And that
I,
was at this point 8 years ago.
yeah, I think it was the one where the Undertaker lost to Brock Lesnar, and I cried. And the only reason
No,
my
that was
no,
WrestleMania 30.
okay, we watched.
We watched I
Okay,
think
it might.
32 was the
So you're
last one.
seeing my computer screen move? That's because my kid is pulling the wires.
uh
The nugget down here.
actually that looks good. Wait, pull it down more. Oh yeah, that looks good. Look at that casino face. So let's
Go ahead.
talk casino briefly about WrestleMania 40. And WrestleMania 40, the first WrestleMania, and I mean, it was now they switched. When we used to watch it, WrestleMania was one night. Now they make it a 2-night event,
Which is
which
wild to me.
I don't like it. I don't like that it's 2 nights. But this year, the 2 nights actually worked well because the main event of night one decided the main event of night two. So it worked that way. But I hate it. I hate that it's 2 nights. I wish we'd just go back to one night. But beggars can't be choosers, and you get 2 full nights of wrestling. I won't do a full recap because obviously people are here for the sports and not for wrestling or any of the bullshit we've been talking about for 12 minutes. But this is our show, so you can fast forward. My matches of the night, casino. Night one, it had to be Sami Zayn versus Gunther. I've only cried in watching wrestling 3 times, and
I
as
call
people of this
bullshit.
podcast know, I cry at movies. I cry at everything when my kids do something cute. I'm a big crier, even though I come
Shit, we
off
were
as
getting sappy today just talking about our kids.
yeah. But wrestling is one of those things. It's my first real interest and love, and I've never kind of wavered from that, but it never no. I think it might be the first thing I was ever into that I stuck with my entire life, if that makes sense.
That's fair.
Yeah. No, because
Anyway,
I don't know.
moving on.
Yeah. I mean, you get what I'm saying. It's one of the things I love the most. That isn't people or casino.
Thank
Because
you.
I don't consider
Gosh,
him
I
a
was waiting
person.
for that.
But Sami Zayn versus Gunther. This match got me all teary-eyed. They did this great build-up where it was like Gunther has been champion up until that point for 66 days, which is the only reason I remember that is because it's 666, right? And he's like this big, unstoppable, unkillable monster that just destroys everybody. And so weeks leading up to this, they had the ultimate good guy in Sami Zayn be like trained by this one guy who's like, you got to believe in yourself and all this kind of stuff. So his entrance into this match is him hugging his wife and kissing his kid. And then he's like walking and like getting hyped up. And then he stops right before he gets on the ramp. And there's Kevin Owens, who is his real life best friend and like storyline WWE best friend. And he basically like hypes him up. They hug. And then he's like, you can do this. Like, I believe in you kind of thing. It got me. And
But
then
it's
he
all
goes out
you're
there.
crying right now.
I know. And then he goes out there and has just a great match. And
I know you're not crying, Michaela.
and he hits an insane top rope brain breaker, which is a gnarly move when you hit it on the mat. So to hit it from
What a
the
great
top
name.
rope, it's a great name.
Brain breaker.
And what is it? He pins him, he wins. It's a big celebration. The girl, Samantha Irvin, who is like the WWE ring announcer, had like a Hall of Fame worthy performance all weekend, like announcing the winners and stuff. She's crying into the microphone as she announces him like the winner. It's in Philadelphia, so the crowd's going crazy. That was a great match. And then the women's matches were also good on the first night. Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch, 2 of the best in the business, maybe
Well,
best
you
women
love
wrestlers
Becky
ever.
Lynch.
Dude, yeah, but Rhea Ripley won. She deserved to win.
Is it?
It was a great match.
Is it the accent?
Well, no, I would take Rhea Ripley over Becky Lynch. Casino. Have you
No,
seen Rhea Ripley?
I have, but I like the accent from Becky Lynch. She's Irish, and it's delightful.
Yeah, you and I both have always had a thing for redheads.
Oh, always.
Yeah, and
All of my ex-girlfriend no, fun fact about Casino, all of my ex-girlfriends are redheads except for my wife.
that is
That's
weird.
that's why she
And
said,
then
well, I mean, there's a couple girls that like I talked to that, but we never made an official like we're together kind of thing. But the ones that I called my girlfriends throughout the years, probably a collective of maybe 6 years worth of my life, they were all redheads.
And then I've dated redheads in the past, and my wife's a redhead. So we share that in common, Casino. We
Mhm.
share that in common.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm just gonna quickly go through it. The whole story with Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre, there was CM Punk, there was a Money in the Bank cash in, all that uh great stuff. Just top tier, top tier. It's fun to have CM Punk back. Drew McIntyre is now all of a sudden just the funniest person on Twitter ever, and he just does the best things you've ever seen. The night one main event was The Rock and Roman Reigns versus
It's crazy that The Rock's doing this again.
not only is The Rock doing it, The Rock is bringing back single-handedly the Attitude Era. He's like he's like just saying fuck and telling people to shut the fuck up and like doing all these curse words.
John Cena is rolling around.
Well, but the Rock for months now has been like
Ow.
turning heel, and he's like beating the shit out of Cody Rhodes, and he's like cursing, and he's like,
How is he a heel if he's with Roman Reigns?
because Roman Reigns is a bad guy. Roman Reigns.
Oh, I thought Seth Rollins was the bad guy.
See, this is why you haven't watched in a while, Casino. So Roman Reigns is the head of the table, the leader of the bloodline. He's like the number one bad guy in the WWE. So The Rock came back, and The Rock was supposed to be the good guy taking on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. But for 2 years, there's been this story of Cody Rhodes. He came over from AEW, returned to the WWE, and then it was like his sole purpose to win the championship his father never won, which was the WWE championship, right? So Roman Reigns is a bad guy. Cody Rhodes comes back as the ultimate good guy. He wins the Royal Rumble, which to anybody who doesn't watch wrestling, you win the Royal Rumble, you get to go for one of the main titles, right? So Cody Rhodes chooses to go for Roman Reigns, and this was last year. Roman Reigns beats him, and Cody Rhodes doesn't get to quote unquote finish his story and win the title. So fast forward to this year, Cody Rhodes wins the Royal Rumble again. The Rock and his company like buys the majority stake in the WWE. So now The Rock and his company legitimately in real life own the WWE, which is crazy to think about.
Well,
So
that's because the McMahons were the worst.
Yes, Vince McMahon was literally shitting on people and doing all this gross shit, so they voted him out. Now it's ran by like Nick Khan and The Rock, and there's Triple H and all these guys. But The Rock Casino came back to the WWE to fight Roman Reigns at WrestleMania because in real life, they are legitimate real life cousins. So it was like the bloodline storyline was basically going to culminate with Roman Reigns losing to his real life cousin, The Rock, blah, 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 blah. But what happened was The Rock.
Yeah, I love that. And aren't like the Usos part of that family as well?
They're all real life cousins.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, which is cool. And then, so The Rock came back. He was supposed to fight Roman Reigns, but he was supposed to fight him as a good guy.
And
so
he was like, cousin,
yes.
we're going to do this, cousin.
Yes. And then Cody Rhodes kind of got pushed to the side. The fans revolted against it because there's been a 2-year storyline with Cody Rhodes who's supposed to defeat Roman Reigns, and then all of a sudden The Rock slides in. So what they do, because they're smart, they turn The Rock bad, have him align with his cousin instead of go against his cousin. And then The Rock turns into Hollywood Rock, where he's coming out and doing all these great promos. And he's cursing on TV, like legitimately dropping F-bombs and telling people to shut the fuck up and doing all this kind of stuff. He's doing this on network television. He's doing this on Fox. Okay, like the most basic cable channel you can get. Okay, but because he's The Rock, they basically let him do it. So The Rock,
well, he owns the company. Is there no like delay or anything?
No. So he's legitimately, and then on USA Network on Monday nights, he's legitimately dropping F-bombs and all
So
this
I
kind
might
of
actually get back into it then. If it's not,
great.
if it's getting away from the kid era that
Oh
John
no,
Cena put together.
Yes, it is back. But the
Last
second
thing I know that I'm last thing I want to ask about wrestling before we move on. I know you've watched it, and I don't want to watch it because I'm ready. I'm not ready to cry yet. How's the documentary of Way Bryant or
Bray Wyatt.
Bray?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
have
Bray
not watched
Wyatt.
it yet.
Oh,
I've not watched it yet.
I don't know
I
if I can
will
handle
though.
it.
But this
We're
has
gonna
gone
have to
to,
we will have to watch that together and cry together.
yeah. I mean, let's do it. This has been way too long, but
Well, that's
basically,
your fault.
yeah, that is. End of night 2, Cody Rhodes finally
Ah,
wins,
my kids.
takes the title from Roman Reigns. There was The Undertaker came back. There was John Cena. There was both the Usos. There was
Did
Solo
Undertaker win?
Sikoa. Well, The Undertaker just came back to choke slam The Rock. But what everybody was hoping for was, because the number one rival of The Rock all time is Stone Cold, right? So
Right.
everybody was hoping Stone Cold came back, gave him a stunner, but that didn't happen. So they got
No,
The
he's too drunk
Undertaker
on a
instead.
beach somewhere.
Well, the funny thing is, when WrestleMania was happening, he was riding ATVs with his cat, which is very funny. But
Oh man, I miss him so much.
but yeah, that was a brief WrestleMania 40 recap.
I mean,
Great
2 days
show.
and 20 minutes. You did good.
10 out of 10. It was fantastic. Now let's get here to what we actually have to talk about, Casino, which is, let's first start with a recap of the women's Final Four, because the last time we've been on
What?
here, it was before the Final Four for the women's had happened. So obviously it ended up being Iowa versus South Carolina. But before that, we had Iowa going up against. Oh, I should have pulled this up, Casino.
Yukon Huskies, and that. Oh man,
So that
woof,
game ended on Friday night,
horribly.
71-69. There was, obviously, we have to talk about it.
I agree
Was
with
it
the
a
call,
foul?
though. Yes,
So
it
it
was. It
was.
was 100% a moving pick. She slid into it, and not only did she slide into, she threw her body. So what happened? Very end of the game, UConn has the ball. They have a chance to win the game. Um, they weren't winning at the time, but they had a chance to win the game with a last second bucket. Shot clock was off, and one of the UConn players made him did a moving pick. With if you're not aware of that, it is illegal to set a screen and move while you're doing it. If you set the screen and you hold your spot, they run into you. Everything's okay, but you can't slide or move or push your body into theirs, as they have to be able to try to get by you with the pick. And I agree with the call. Is it shitty how it ended? Is it really shitty how it ended? Yes. But, and somebody brought up a good point where I was reading comments where, this sucks that this game was a really good game and it's only going to be remembered by that horrible call, blah, 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 blah. But then somebody wrote back and it was great. It was, well, what if UConn won, made the three? It's going to be flip flop the other way. Is the talking point's going to be they didn't get the call right. So I think they got it right. It was a clear moving pick in my mind. The body, the shoulder, and everything were still moving into the player, the Iowa player. So that's my take on it. What's yours?
Yeah, again, I hate when refs decide games.
But I
And
mean,
again, I hate that I hate when games end on fouls, right? Like it
um,
just takes all the air out of the excitement of it, but I didn't think it was blatant, but it clearly was a foul. But again,
I thought it was blatant. She didn't have her feet set, and she kept moving into the Iowa player as she tried to get by her.
but
That's a moving
again,
pick.
if this was Iowa, do like the exact scenario is reversed, but it's Iowa who does that.
And
Do you
that's
think that call gets called against Iowa?
probably not, and that's the issue. And
That's the
there's the
issue.
thing. That's the
Yeah.
person who made a great point, is the talking point. If it was flip-flopped, they didn't say if it was flip-flopped on Iowa, causing the foul. But if they let that go and UConn hit that, then there's going to be a discussion. So no matter how you put it, whichever way, if you roll reverse or if you just say, it was a foul, it wasn't a foul, that was going to be the talking point of the game. Sadly, I wish that play did not happen. Like, all in all, I wish that play didn't happen. But it was the right call. I love Gino. He has a right to be upset, but it was the right call. In my mind, it was the right call. I mean,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have mattered because South Carolina absolutely rolled NC State. And when they got into, did you watch the finals? Which, man, they absolutely rolled Iowa. Just rolled.
Some would say they destroyed.
Dude,
They destroyed.
39-0 for the Gamecocks.
Man, I mean, the first off, both, and we'll get to both obviously, but both the finals in both games, I mean, were just both massacres. It
Yeah,
never felt in this game like Iowa had a shot. It never felt like Purdue had a shot outside of the first 3 minutes of the game.
yeah.
It was just kind of like the inevitable, slowly the inevitable. And I wanted to ask you a question, Casino,
Yep.
which was the discourse afterwards of this game was obviously Caitlin Clark, and we'll get to her in a moment, but she was probably the best player on the floor on either team, correct?
Oh, she was. Yes, she
Yes.
she clearly was. It was it
Well,
was
the
it was a
question
battle of the benches.
Yes. So the question is, and the question I've seen asked a lot is, would any other player on Iowa make the starting lineup for South Carolina? Because the discourse, and again, this is a topic we're going to get to in a little bit on a broader scale, but the topic is basically, would anybody on Iowa play on this South Carolina team, even though the GOAT, as we'll talk about, was playing on Iowa? Does that make sense? I sent Casino a picture of Rhea Ripley. Yeah. But so what do you think about that, Casino? Not Rhea
Um.
Ripley.
Oh,
Uh,
darn it! You ruined my joke. I was about to go off about that. Damn it. She is quite ripped and like the tattoos, and black worked for her. Anyway, I still like Becky Lynch. I like the redhead. Fake redhead, I don't care. But anyway, what was the question?
oh Lord. Would anybody on Iowa outside of Caitlin Clark be starting on the South Carolina side?
Nah, buh, mm, maybe.
Be-
Uh, I mean, they're all the starting five's pretty good. I mean, Kate Martin is really good. The guard. I mean, she had 16 points, 5 rebounds as a guard. Like, that's pretty good. Um, yeah, man. I don't know,
yeah.
but it ain't Kate and Clark numbers. 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 30 points. Like, that's good. But it was clearly the benches that came to play, um, for the Gamecocks. So
Yeah, the bench, I wrote it down at one point. This wasn't even at the end of the game. This was literally, I think, with 5 minutes left in the game. So this was probably what is it? It was probably more than this at the end. The bench for South Carolina outscored the Iowa bench 27 points to nothing. 2-0.
Yeah.
So to
What did the
get, and
game end?
again,
What did it end at? I mean,
I
probably
I don't
roughly
know.
about the same.
I'm assuming around the same, but again, this was kind of a high scoring game, but it's not like it got into the hundreds. So to have almost 30 of the 87 points
And
from
that's
your
your game
bench,
right there. The game was only a 12-point game.
yeah. Well, and it started, it was bad when Clark just wasn't hitting her threes and they kind of just looked out of sync. And how much have we talked about? I mean, college basketball, NBA, any form of basketball nowadays, when you're not hitting threes, it's a wrap. It's like over. Like, it doesn't matter how many good players you have, how good you are as a team, you live or die by the three. And when you die by the three, it's painful because it's just agonizing to watch, because it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because when you're down pretty much the whole game, like you are Iowa, you need to get ahead quicker. So threes make sense. But then when you keep missing them and South Carolina just goes right down the other end and it's just putting in 2 points after 2 points, like that adds up. And now all of a sudden it's 87-73 or 75. I mean, I thought this game it felt like a big time moment, but
And and with that, that's a perfect transition. I don't think we need to talk about the Final Four for the men, really. Um, I, I mean, we can, but I, UConn handled Alabama and Purdue handled NC State.
yeah.
Regardless of how Burns did not actually have a good game. He had only 8 points, but so that game was kind of a wash. I thought it would be more exciting, but we got Purdue, UConn. They were both the number 1 seeds. Looked really good. UConn ended up winning. They went back to back. I really thought the Boilermakers were going to do it, but I wanted to do the quick transition over to it because it's essentially the same thing. Caitlin Clark, Zach Edey, same thing. Zach Edey, 10 rebounds, 37 points. Everybody else, the next closest person had 12 points with Braden Smith. He did have 8 assists, but those were all pretty much to Zach Edey. I watched the game. But again, the bench and the rest of the starters for Purdue didn't do anything. I mean, 37 of the 60 points for Purdue were Zach Edey. And then you look over at UConn, and it's spread. It's 4 people in double digits. It was spread out more. Come on, man.
This is why we do this show together, Casino, because my next topic after we talked about this, I wrote this before the show. Great teams versus great players.
Boom.
Which is literally
Boom.
what you
Boom.
just
Brat, brat. Oh, I can't
was
believe I did that. That was horrible.
But great segue, because again, we can go back. Segu, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
But we can talk.
I understand French, sir.
We can talk about the UConn Purdue game, but there's nothing really to talk about.
No,
it wasn't.
It was not fun to watch.
I watched a House of Highlights on YouTube, great basketball highlight channel. Usually 4 games, college, NFL or NFL, NBA. I don't think they do NFL, but just NBA and college basketball. Usually 15, 20, 25 minutes when they're recapping a game, when that channel recaps a game for highlights, right? After I watched this game, I was like, what? I wonder what they did for the highlights of this game. The highlight length video for this game, again, usually it's 15, 20 minutes, was 6 minutes, because that's all there was. This game was boring.
I was really excited. Like the
nothing.
first 5 minutes, everybody was super into the game. The crowds were loud, buckets back and forth. Yeah. It was wonderful. It was electric. I had it on at the bar.
Dare I say, Edey was cooking. He was cooking.
There it was. And then it just, once it got out of hand, it just wasn't fun to watch. Everybody at the bar stopped watching that. We had the Knights game on because we do a promotion for that. And everybody almost collectively, except for one person, was like, turn to the Knights game, do the sound, blah, blah, blah. And I just had a small TV where I had the rest of the game on, but nobody was interested in that game. I think the person that was watching it had money on it, but that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, both how even the men's March Madness tournament had, its fans before it, even though you and I mean, are both a testament to how no one gives a shit about the regular season of men's or women's college basketball. And then March Madness
I have
happens.
to go
And
check my
now,
daughter. She's saying she's stuck, which I don't understand. We have the outside patio couch, and she's saying she's stuck. I'll be right back.
okay. But uh, we just, everyone I know gets super into March Madness, right? For this year, it was the women's and men's. Throughout my life, it's always been the men's, and then there's obviously been some years where it's been the women's thrown in there. But this year, it really felt like women's March Madness is the number one most talked about, most watched, most engaging of the March Madness brackets we've had in a long time, right? Because college basketball is basically dead because the one and done rule, right? So you don't really have stars in college basketball. But then you have a pretty mediocre men's March Madness. I mean, we talked about it last time where how every good team, like the majority of their games in the Final Four, everybody to get there, Alabama, UConn, NC State, and Purdue, like they played what, almost 4 or 5 games each, and 3 or 4 of all those games were just absolute blowouts, right? So at least on the women's side, and again, there were some games like NC State and Oakland and a couple other ones in there that were close, that went into OT, that were fun to watch. But on the women's side, like we just talked about, where it was UConn and Iowa, those were at least interesting towards the end. It's much more interesting to have a Final Four Elite Eight game that gets close than a Sweet 16 game that's close, right? But
Oh
but
yeah, means
basically,
more.
yeah. So at the end here, I think it was disappointing for fans for both the women's and men's final to kind of be
Very,
over
very
by halftime.
unmemorable. That's so true.
Yeah. But let's so when I brought up the great teams versus great players because we saw it in both Iowa and Purdue Casino with Clark and Edie, but I was trying to think, and I wonder, and this is across all sports, do you remember a time where a great player beat a great team? Because I was thinking about this and I was like, I think it happens much more rarely than people really think.
I think you're right.
Because the one that immediately popped to my head was when LeBron James and the Cavaliers came back 3-1 against that Golden State team to win the championship. Because it was basically LeBron James in that against, Durant and Steph Curry and the record and one of the best teams we've ever seen. And it was literally just a player willing himself to beat a great team. But I think on the flip side, I can think of Dirk Nowitzki where he beat the Heat
Oh, the
super team.
2011, I think. Oh wow,
Yeah.
that was a great. I love that. I love Dirk. I love his shot. I love when he shoots it and it goes out of the TV camera view, and then all of a sudden it just comes down into the net. You're like, wait, what the hell?
Yeah. I
Like
think
he's got the most beautiful rainbow arc when he shoots. Ugh.
and then as a Philadelphia fan, I can only think of instances where it's been one great player having an all-time performance and then falling short to great teams. I think of Allen Iverson basically carrying that 2001 Sixers team against the Shaq Kobe Lakers and
That's
just
fair.
getting annihilated. And then I do think of Hurts versus the Chiefs because he's been the only one. I mean, we've seen how many big games Mahomes has been in. The only two people to ever outplay Mahomes in big games has been Brady and Hurts. That's
Right.
it.
And even with Brady, like I was trying to think of like games with him as you brought that question up. Um, like even
Well,
the
he was usually
Falcons,
on the great
yeah, like
teams.
even on the Falcons comeback, like I yes, he got the MVP and he deserved it, but I honestly thought the MVP should have gone to James White that game. The
Yeah.
running like if it wasn't for him, scrambling and reaching out for 2 touchdowns, like legitimately reaching out and not letting his knees hit, the Patriots don't win that game. Also, you had the direct snap on the 2-point conversion. So like that's a team effort. So, and so to kind of like boost what you're saying here, where a team was expected to win because they had great players so last year with hockey, that Oilers Knights series, you had 2 of the best players in the game. You have the best player in the game with Connor McDavid, and then you also had Leon Draisaitl, and that was the team. Like they were so good. Like those 2 players are so good and so dominant that the Knights were able to stuff them up enough. They still scored quite a bit during that series, but stuffed them up enough that they let the rest of the team, their Knights team, win them the series. And like it big I love teams that play as a team over individual players. I like watching the NBA individual players better than actual team, even though I'm a Celtics fan by trade. But I like watching teams play. My second favorite team in NCAA basketball happens to be totally random, happens to be Wichita State, because I really enjoyed watching Wichita State one year. They had the mentality of fast team basketball where everybody was getting like double digits. It was really fun to watch them play, and I liked that. And so just from then on, I'm like, okay, they're my second favorite NCAA basketball team.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching teams play. Individual players is fun, but you're right. It's hard to win, and it's very rare to see individual players win a team sport for their team.
And that's not even just in basketball, like across all sports.
All sports.
I've been racking my head all morning, and it's like one of those. I would love to hear if anybody listening would like to comment below about when a great player on a not necessarily bad team, but a team where he or she is clearly carrying this team to, the finals, to a championship, and just when they put the team on their back and beat a great team. Like, really, I think the best I think the best example of this is the 2011 Mavericks, where it was, you had future Hall of Famer LeBron James, future Hall of Famer D Wade, you had Pete Chris Bosh, you had that Heat culture coming together, blowing through that regular season and playoffs, and then it was like the Mavs are going to get murdered, right? It's going to be a sweet 4-0, and then Dirk just puts it on his back and beats him. I mean, I can't think of, and then the LeBron
and I love that's one of my favorite NBA finals that I can ever remember, was because I watched the final game. I watched 2 games, but watched the final game with a grade school friend. So we're in college, but I watched it with a grade school friend who is a diehard Mavericks fan. I've never met another Mavericks fan in my entire life. He's legitimately the only one. And I remember seeing his face when it happened, and he's not an emotional person. He's actually a very stoic person, but he pulled a BJ. He just started going. Sports means so much to people.
You just saying that, I cannot believe I did not think of this. The obvious pick for me is Nick Foles versus your Patriots.
That wasn't,
but I wouldn't even say
that wasn't single-handedly.
Great player. I mean, single-handedly.
No, he didn't.
In
well,
that
I mean,
game,
well, I mean that game because the defenses did shit on both teams.
Yeah. But I mean, but see, I think where it falls apart there is he's not a great player. That was like a great performance by. That's like a outlier once in a lifetime thing. But Casino, speaking of great players, The question has to be asked. She will be a 2-time MVP by the time she leaves women's college basketball, but she will not have won a championship. So, in women's college basketball, is Caitlin Clark the GOAT?
In college basketball?
In women's college basketball.
Oh, man. That's a tough one because that's a tough one because that's records versus titles.
Yes.
Because, I mean, if you want to talk titles, fucking Brianna Stewart, man. I mean, as my kid screams in the background, I think Brianna Stewart won
fan.
every single one because she did all 4 years.
Yeah, but see, then it becomes she was on UConn, correct?
Correct. And they won 4 titles back to back.
But then when they left, like UConn was still good.
Yeah.
Do we really expect Iowa to be this good when Caitlin Clark leaves next year? Like, there's no way. There's no way. So I think the discussion when it becomes
Yeah, so this is great, though. The Huskies not only won their 4th national title in a row, they left, no doubt, Brianna Stewart, Morgan Tuck, and Moira Johnson won the 4th championships in their careers and won NCAA tournament games. Dude, that's cool. Like, because I remember that was a whole story. That's why they were so good. They stayed the whole time. And they were just like, we're gonna win a title. We're gonna win a title. We're gonna win a title.
Yeah, but I think when it becomes professional in college, I think it's different because in the professionals, it's like, and again, this goes for all sports, it's like a team gets built around you. You have more flexibility. Obviously, this is before, when we talk about Stewart, this was before transfer portal and all that kind of stuff. So this notion might change over the next coming years, especially with NIL money, transfer portal, basically kids now having the choice or option to go to different colleges if they don't like the one that recruited them, or maybe they started as a 1-star and now can go to better places and all that kind of stuff. But I think when it comes to college versus pros, I don't know if championships in college hold the same weight when it comes to GOAT arguments as professional sports do, right? But then again, in women's college basketball, it might, because I think women's college basketball, just from an optics perspective, it's more popular in the college side of it than it is the pro side of it, right? Like the WNBA is about to become more popular because Caitlin Clark's going into it.
And Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese going in.
Yes.
And having a feud. I think that's going to be awesome.
Well, also, did you see that the Las Vegas Aces are moving their first game next season where Caitlin Clark comes to town for the first time? They're moving it to T-Mobile Arena.
Hell yeah. Well, so we've talked about it plenty. I know you're not an Aces. Well, you're an Aces fan, but you don't care about
WNBA.
A lot of the,
I don't care about the WNBA.
That's
you can
fine.
say that. I don't care about it.
Okay, fair enough. I was trying to be inclusive with you, but like I've said, those games either sell out or are very close to selling out every single time for the Aces because again, this town is very prideful in. We've been wanting sports for so long. I mean, we're the mecca of entertainment, and we finally got professional sports teams to call our own that were bred here in Vegas. So having the Aces do that, like those games they're not going to be able to handle the crowd of what Caitlin Clark's going to bring. What Caitlin Clark will bring, plus what we already fill up. Like there would be no way. T-Mobile Arena will probably be sold out, which will be awesome.
You want to go to this game?
Probably.
When Caitlin Clark comes to the
I would
Aces?
love to.
I would want to see this.
I will be cheering my ass off for the Aces because I want a three-peat, but that would be cool to see Caitlin Clark play.
I think we should go to that game, Casino. But as far as is Caitlin Clark the GOAT argument, as someone who knows nothing about college basketball, I don't know. But what I will say is she is the GOAT of getting people interested in a sport that I feel like the masses weren't interested in before she stepped on the scene. right? So she's the GOAT of attention in a good way, right? Of getting eyes to a product that not that many eyes were on before. But when it comes to her going to the WNBA, I mean, how can she not also make that sport more popular? Because again, I don't care about the WNBA, and all of a sudden she's going to be in the WNBA, and now all of a sudden I'm looking at ticket prices of when I can go see her, right? So, I mean,
And you know what would be, and
that's
what's gonna be, yeah, yeah. You're good.
no, go ahead.
No, you're good.
What? What's going to be
No,
what?
you're good. You're good because I've moved on from that mentally.
uh, but all right, Casino. Anything else before we end the show? That's why there's a
Um,
question mark. Anything else you want to talk about before we
talk
get out
about
of here?
something else because I want to check something real quick.
Okay.
Keep talking.
I mean, the other topic I had that I wanted your opinion on, and I think this is a fair topic, especially what's been going on lately, is why do female athletes hate Caitlin Clark so much that all I see is former college basketball women greats, current WNBA players just shitting on her at all times. There was uh and this I think proves the Caitlin Clark argument, which is
There it
the
is.
former
I was right.
women's what is it? The former women's record holder for points basically came out in a press, or not a press conference, but like she was at a
And
function or something
that's
where they
perfect because
asked
that's what I
her
want.
about it.
That's what I want
Yes.
to talk about because the Las Vegas Aces, Kelsey Plum. I thought it was her, but I just wanted to double check before I spent that. Kelsey Plum, who plays for the Aces, was the previous college women's college points leader, and So to have Kelsey Plum versus Caitlin Clark, of course that's gonna be that would oh wow that even heightens that game even more.
No, she wasn't even the one I was thinking of. It was an older player who came
Candace
out.
Parker.
No, it wasn't. It was a woman whose name I don't know. Both names you've said you knew, and then it was again. We can say no disrespect, which I don't, but again, I just said I didn't watch college sports before this. It was
Sue
Lynette
Bird.
Woodard.
Oh,
Lynette Woodard.
yep.
So she was, I guess, the former women's record holder. She finished with 3,649 points. And then Caitlin Clark finished with 3,951 points. She came out and said that Clark's record doesn't count because when Woodard got the record, they were playing with a men's ball and the 3-point wasn't as I guess wasn't in the game as it is right now, which
So
is again a
who was it that
dumb
you're saying?
argument to make. Huh?
Lynette Woodard?
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Like, how can you come out
Um,
and be like, I'm actually the one when like
I don't know. That doesn't because I have the list pulled up right here from the NCAA. Caitlin Clark has 3,951 points. Kelsey Plum is the next with 3,527
well,
points.
I think she kind of grouped everybody from like this generation in it, but it was noteworthy because it was Clark was the new number one. I
Okay,
don't
well,
think
I mean,
she
this
acknowledges
list has
Plum
players from
either.
the 80s and whatnot, and I don't see that person on here.
See, that's what like. I don't know who this person is, so it's weird to come out and be like, I'm actually the number one, where it's just like, I looked at the list like you did, and I was like, her name is way down on that list.
I don't see her. I don't see her on this list at all. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. Like this is I see it right here. Top 25 in D1 women's college basketball as of April 7th, 2024. But like I said, there's players from the 90s, the 80s. The lowest it goes is in the 80s. But yeah, Kelsey Plum is the next who played for Washington back in 2017, who has the next highest. But Kelsey Plum has over 400 plus points more than that.
Yeah. So again, when she said those comments, I don't know. And then I listened to other people talk about it, and they're like giving her her flowers and being like, I mean, she does have a point, and it's like, no, she doesn't. The games evolve. Like, yeah, if you take away all LeBron James 3-point shots, he's not the all-time leading scorer, but why are we putting asterisks for completely legal things in the game that everybody else can do? Like, that's what I never understood. Like, Caitlin Clark got people's eyes on the product because she's really good at shooting 3-pointers. 3-pointers are a thing in the game now.
Scoring is fun.
Yeah.
And she, like I said, she wasn't scoring 3-pointers. She was scoring 3-pointers from men's
logo.
The men's past the men's 3-point line. Like, it's wild. But yeah, that's all I got for today. My child is talking back. I'm saying, stay out of the rocks, because I can see her. She's like, no, you stay out of the rocks. I'm like, cool. 3-year-olds, man, they're fun.
They are fun. And this has been really fun, Casino.
Yeah.
We talked a lot of nonsense, but that's what this show is.
Yeah, the first 20 minutes was nonsense.
I think it was much more than that. Maybe we're at 55 minutes or 56 minutes. Maybe all 56 of it has been nonsense. Especially if you're a big Lynette Woodard fan. This has all been nonsense.
Dude, I've actually never heard of her name. So honestly, I'm not like a big WNBA fan.
You're a big Aces fan.
I'm a big Aces fan, but I do know a lot of players that have come out throughout the years, like from college, so that have already now retired out of the WNBA. So I know very influential names in the WNBA, but I don't remember that one, to be honest.
Well, then also the other names in that conversation were, it's the two women whose names I'm literally just forgetting, where they do the simulcast with what is it, like the Manning brothers do, but they do it for women's basketball, and they were doing it during the South Carolina Iowa game. And anything, I saw a compilation of it, like anything Caitlin Clark did, they kind of just shit on it and were like, she's not going to be able to do that in the WNBA. And it's like, why is this the narrative? Because first off, she absolutely will. And second off, like, we're not watching a WNBA game. We're watching the college basketball game where she's lighting it up. So it's weird. And everybody is
so those numbers are going to decrease a little bit for sure, but she's still a pure shooter. If she gets a shot, she'll be playing with better players. So as long as they can get her an open shot, that's not going to change how she's going to shoot.
Yeah.
So I mean, she's just going to need better players to help get her open to play against better players. That's all.
But this is in all sports, especially basketball, men's and women's side. It's so weird and always pisses me off when the former generations like shit on the current generations.
Yeah,
and it's just like, why? They're making a sport you played and loved better and bringing more eyes in. So why shit?
I totally agree with that sentiment. So I guess with that being said,
this has been the only sports
Gen
podcast.
Z. Fuck. Oh, hey, just kidding. I mean, I don't know, because we're not millennials. No, we're millennials. Yeah, we're millennials.
I don't know.
We're millennials. We're millennials. My brother, how I know this, because my older brother is like, oh, I'm that Gen X, the 80s Gen. And I'm like, you were born in 86. Gen X like stops at 82. Like, and then millennials start. You're a millennial, you dumbass. No, I'm Gen X, man. No, fuck off. You're a millennial. You're an idiot.
Well, from two millennials, this has been the Only Sports Podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino over there. We'll be back later this week.
And I did a podcast with both my kids awake at the same time. Holy shit.
We could tell.
Good, buddy.
We could tell.
Oh, why? It was good. He did really good today.
We'll be back later this week. We'll talk about NHL, NBA, because both those playoffs are about to be starting anytime now. We'll talk about other stuff that happens between now and Friday.
You fell off the couch outside. I fall down. Okay.
This has been the Only Sports Podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino over there. We'll see you Friday.
Bye.
Adios.